right here in my outliner. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to be erasing all my foliage from underneath the card just so that we can save some assets, because when I was painting the foliage, I painted some underneath the car as well. So I'm just going to be getting rid of that. Make sure that you don't erase anything outside of it, because then that's going to be visible and it's going to look pretty bad. I think something like that should be good. And we are actually removing quite a lot of foliage. Actually, I did remove some from there as well. So I'm just going to paint that back in. Perfect. And I think our scene is looking pretty decent. Now let's fix that issue at the back, where our foliage is basically disappearing. And to fix that, I'm simply going to be entering a console command. And that's going to be foliage dot force LOD space 0. Now if I press enter, you're going to see that all the foliage is going to be appearing in perfectly high quality. And well, that is going to come with the performance cost as well, obviously. So I'm not going to turn that on for now. When we are rendering it, then we can just turn that on. I just wanted to show you how it looks. So to set it back to the default, you can just simply write foliage.force LOD and then -1, and that's just gonna set it back to the default. Press save all, Control S, and oops, my bad. Control S, and now we can move on to the next step, which is going to be adding the trees, because right now our foliage has been added and I think it looks pretty good. The next step obviously is to add the trees. So for the trees, you can use the same collection which we imported in the last tutorial. You're going to see this one right here, Black Alder. So I'm just going to open that. I'm going to open the geometry folder of this. You can download this collection, by the way, from the Epic Game Store. It's I think it's called Megascans Trees Black Alder collection or something like that. But yeah, European Black Alder, I think that's what it's called. But yeah, you can go to the Pivot Painter folder inside it, and now you can just simply drag trees in. So I'm going to drag a really large tree in the front, something like that maybe. I think that should be good. Maybe scale it down a little bit. Something like that, so that we have some of our leaves visible. And now we can use the second viewport to sort of place our tree where we want it to appear. I think something like that should be good. Maybe even move it down slightly and move it close to the car. I think that should be good. And now we can just continue to duplicate this tree and add more of them. Yeah, so what I'm going to do also, by the way, if your reflections are not looking that good in the glass especially, what you can do is you can set your scalability mode to cinematic. By default, I think it is set to epic, and you're going to see that in epic your reflections are going to look very fake. So you can just go to settings. This also, by the way, this is only this option is only available in Unreal Engine 5.1 and above. So if you have Unreal Engine 5.0, then this unfortunately is not going to work. So just be sure to upgrade your Unreal Engine first. So you can just go to settings, engine scalability settings, and then cinematic. Now you're going to see your reflections are going to look a lot better. Let's see how it all looks in path tracing. It looks amazing. Although we're not noticing that big of a difference. So let's just continue to see if both of them look similar, then we can maybe render it using lit mode. So I'm just going to be duplicating this tree by pressing Alt, holding Alt on my keyboard, and then we can just add one right there as well. And this one I'm going to be moving it down, something like that, and moving it across. So we're basically trying to fill in the whole area and sort of make it yeah, basically we're trying to fill in the whole area, something like that. Let me move it apart. I think that should be good. Or maybe move it right there. I think that's looking pretty decent. Obviously the lighting is not that good, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be adding a post-process volume now. So I'm just going to go to add visual effects and then post-process volume. Let me just move it down. Then let's make it infinite extent, unbound. Just turn that on. Then you can just go to exposure, and the exposure you can set the metering mode to manual, and then exposure compensation to something like 11 or maybe 10. I think 10.5 should be the sweet spot. I think that looks pretty good. And now you can just go ahead and move your sun to see where it looks good. And I think I'm just going to select my direction light. Let's move it closer to the car so that we can simply simply rotate the sun from this viewport. And now we can just select the rotate tool and start to rotate it. So I think something like that should be good. I think I'm going to go with that because I think that looks pretty decent. And one thing which you might be noticing right now is the fact that the background is looking pretty bad. And so to fix that, we're going to be adding fog. So how exactly do we add fog? You simply go to exponential height fog, go down, first turn on volumetric fog, and you're going to see instantly you're going to notice that it's going to add a lot of fog, which is going to look amazing. And we're going to increase the fog density to something like 0.05. And so that's just going to add a lot of fog in the back. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be duplicating the trees and then just adding them, just scattering them around the place, all around the place, so that they sort of hide the background. I think something like that should be good. And that just sort of fills in the background with a lot of trees, which make the whole scene look pretty realistic. And they just cover up the background for us. I think that looks pretty good. Now we are going to have to fill in this space with some grass, because obviously it doesn't look good right now. It looks empty. So with all this selected, I'm just going to paint some grass back there. It's obviously not going to be visible right now because it's going to disappear. We are going to be adding that command later on to make it more, to make it look better. I think it looks pretty decent. Yep. So now we can just simply go ahead and maybe turn on that command. Let's hope Unreal Engine doesn't crash, because we have quite a lot of geometry in our scene. Press save all and Control S as well. And I think our scene is looking pretty decent. And we're almost done. We're almost good to go. And so I'm just going to go to path tracing mode. Let's see how it looks in that. I honestly think lit mode looks better for some reason. So I'm going to go with lit mode for this. But right now, the main difference you're going to see between these two is the fact that this has a lot more contrast and the scene looks a lot better in general. So I'm just going to make this look better as well. So actually, we can maybe move these trees back. What that's going to do is that that's going to sort of give them that silhouette look, which is going to add to the realism, and it's going to make the whole scene look better. Let me delete that. I think something like that should be good. And one thing which we can do is we can go down to our post-process volume. Let's go down to our global, and then we can just go to contrast, and then we can increase the contrast to something like 1.2, and I think that makes our whole scene look a lot better. And let's try going into path tracing mode, and you're going to see that the fog in the back looks a lot better, a lot more realistic with the path tracing mode. And you can even go to your post-process volume, go down to path tracing. It's right here, path tracing. And if you turn on reference atmosphere, you're going to see that it's going to come up with a whole new atmosphere. And the color of that right now is super blue. So that's why we have this bluish tint right here. But you can obviously change that using this sky atmosphere actor. You can go up to the ray. I'm not exactly sure what this is called, Rayleigh scattering, whatever. So you can just maybe reduce the vibrance of that. Yeah, so I think this looks a lot more realistic as compared to our lit mode. So yeah, you have all these options. You can just choose whichever one you want. I think I'm going to go with that because I think that looks a lot more realistic. Then we can maybe move these trees a little forward, something like that. Maybe a little back. Maybe we brought them too close. I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's the sweet spot. You can obviously reduce the exposure of this if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and turn on these lights. So let me make sure that snapping is turned on. Let's move it apart. Let's select the light object and let's apply the light material to these. So I'm just going to go to my automotive materials, exterior, and then lights, and let's apply the white light to this and to this as well. I think not that, my bad. I think it was this one. Yeah, right there. And now we can select the class, move it back in place. Oops. Yeah, and I think our scene is looking pretty decent. You can obviously play around with the post-processing a little bit. You can maybe add some bloom, or you can change the method of the bloom to convolution. That just, in my opinion, that makes it look a little more realistic because the bloom is only in selective areas, not the whole scene. So it makes your scene look a little more realistic. And apart from that, you can maybe tweak the exposure, but I think that's fine. Maybe add a little bit of chromatic aberration, so 0.2. That's just going to give your scene a slight bit of a realistic effect. You can add lens flares if you want. I'm not going to add them. because then I think in this scene they're gonna make it look a little too artificial. Apart from that, I think we're basically good to go. Yeah, we can turn on reference depth of field as well. This is just gonna make our depth of field a little bit better in path tracing. Then set your screen percentage to 100%. So basically, once this orange bar has been completed, what you're gonna do is you're simply gonna click these three lines right here, click high resolution screenshot, and then just click capture, and you're gonna see a path right here. So you can just click that path, and then you can open your render, and then you can just share it wherever you want. You can post it, you can post process it, and yeah, you can do whatever you want. Apart from that, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I really hope you learned something new. And yeah, that's basically it for this one, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.